Okay, thank you for joining us. I think all four of you who are here right now are new arrivals to my digital programming that we've been kind of working out for the past couple of weeks or so. So I appreciate seeing your attendance. And of course, today we are going to be covering Zoom security and tips. Now, the way I've been doing this kind of program is I just kind of go through it relatively quickly. If you're used to my in-person programs where I go on and on for an hour, I try to avoid that just because we're all sitting at home and have a lot of things to do. But so I get through the meat relatively quickly. If there are questions, we can address some questions. And I remind folks too that you can always contact me directly for one-on-one type things if you've got a particular issue that I can help you with. And that way we're not, necessarily taking up other folks' time. People can always dip in and out, and, if they're finished with what they need to hear, they can go away. That's okay with me. I will not be offended. But let's go through what I've got going on here. Still the 5 participants. Good. All right. So when it comes to Zoom, we're all kind of racing to catch up. It has become sort of the de facto official meeting template platform for for the whole world over the past couple of weeks. And I will definitely cop to not being a Zoom expert myself. I'm trying to figure it out along with everyone else. But I think I've managed to be somewhat successful over the past couple of weeks. And I've also been following the news of Zoom security issues and what they're doing to address them. So I know I get questions from folks like, is this really safe? And of course, here I am doing a program about Zoom on Zoom. So that should be one indication for you. But let's talk first about some of those security tips. And the main security issue that people have been hearing about is this whole concept of Zoom bombing. And I should mention from the outset too that everything I'm going to go over here does presume at least a little bit of experience with Zoom so far. Like you've at least, you're here on Zoom right now, so hopefully you've gotten this far. So that's pretty much the level of expertise that I think you need for right now. But if you find that I'm jumping over things that you're not sure about to give you these security issue notes and some more specific tips, that's the kind of thing that you can contact me separately and ask about. But I do want to assume that everyone has at least a very basic foundation, and that these security measures and tips and tricks and things will be things that can add to your foundation. On the other hand, maybe you are more of an expert than I am, in which case I invite you to host the next Zoom Zoom program. But okay, so Zoom bombing is the number one sort of security flaw that we've been hearing about from folks who are jumping into the world of Zoom. And what this means is unwanted participants getting a hold of your Zoom invite. They join the meeting and they disrupt it in various inappropriate ways that I won't go into. And, here I am doing what is not considered a best practice. I put the Zoom link to join this meeting, as I do for most of my library programs that are going to take place on Zoom, right out there in the social media invite. That's not necessarily considered a best practice because they do, Zoom experts suggest guard your invite link. I make mine for library events widely available because I want the public to find me, and I have to kind of be okay with the trade-off that something hinky might go down as a result. I just have to kind of be on my guard, and if something sort of wacky starts happening, hopeful that I can nip it in the bud. But I've also done other things to make this safe from the get-go, even though I have sent out the invite link, and I'll get into those briefly. But if you're not like me, if you're not hosting an event that you just want to be widely available to anybody, if you're hosting a meeting for work, a committee that you're on, or a family gathering, probably don't post the meeting invite openly on social media or anything like that. you send it privately to just the people you want to attend. And if you've set up a Zoom meeting, you hopefully know what I'm talking about. When you create a scheduled meeting, you have that Zoom invite link that says, share this with people you want to participate. I'm saying I put it out there because I want the whole world to know, and maybe I'll live to regret that. But if you are hosting a village committee meeting, or you are hosting a family Easter virtual picnic, maybe don't put that out in social media. Maybe send it directly via private messaging to the people you want to attend. And also, there are going to be screenshots to show you to demonstrate some of this in a minute. So don't worry if you're not following quite yet. But the number 2 anti-Zoom bombing tip would be during meeting setup itself, use an automatically generated meeting ID. So when you're setting up a meeting, you have 2 options. You can use either your personal meeting ID, or you can say generate automatically, and you want to select that generate automatically option. The personal meeting ID I read is basically like a permanent ongoing live meeting that is tied to your Zoom account. So if somebody gets that when you use it once 3 months ago, and then you have another meeting in the future 6 months from now using that same ID, and whoever had it before still has it, and they don't belong in that meeting, they could still get into your meeting. Whereas if you generate one automatically, it's a brand new meeting ID for that session. Nobody who you've interacted with before has that, so you can pick and choose who you want to invite. You also want to consider password protecting your meeting. That's mostly if you're extra concerned about security. Maybe if it's one of those very official meetings that you're having, whatever, for whatever organization or workplace you might be involved in. If you really just want to make sure to keep out anyone who does not belong there, you can password protect the meeting during setup. And you can enable the waiting room, and that's what I did for this session. So for this session, I automatically generated the meeting ID and I enabled the waiting room. So when all of you first clicked on my Zoom invite and got into Zoom, you didn't come directly into this session. You were in the quote unquote waiting room, and it was up to me to see who was in the waiting room and to admit you. So that's another security measure. If you know, here are 5 people I know are going to attend this meeting, I know their names, I know what kind of device they're going to be jumping on, then you know to watch for those people, and you can not admit anyone extraneous who shows up. So that's what you can do during meeting setup. During the meeting itself, you have some options as well. You can maintain control of screen sharing. So right now, I'm sharing my screen with you. I'm not using my camera. I have told Zoom to broadcast a particular window that I have open on my screen. And there are a couple of options with that. Default is anybody who's in the meeting can share their screen. And I honestly, I'm not even sure why that's an option, although it's even crazier that that's usually the default. It seems that the host should be the one who controls screen sharing. And there are options to, you can select specific attendees to share their screens and whatnot. But of course, for if you're having a much more collaborative meeting than the stuff I usually do, which is more like I'm sharing information with you all. But say you're on a committee and one person has the spreadsheet, one person has the PowerPoint. There could be a reason to choose who can share their screen. But from the get-go, and especially if it's going to be a more wide open meeting, as the host, hold control of screen sharing. And you can always boot disruptive users. You can kick someone out if they are proving to be not the kind of person you want in the meeting. And as the host, you have a participant, a managed participant option. And when you open that up, you'll see the list of everyone who is in the meeting. If you can tell the person, their username is, Wacky Boy 2457, they're sharing inappropriate content, they're saying dumb things in the chat, they keep their audio on and they're, making noise, you can find them amongst the participants and you can remove them from the meeting. So those are specific for preventing unwanted people from getting in and disrupting your meeting in what is called Zoom bombing. And here is some visual aid to help you. Here's what it looks like when you schedule a meeting. If you look down through that, first thing you see after topic, the date, the duration, and all that stuff, you see that section that says meeting ID. So I have selected generate automatically. That's the one that you want to select to keep people who have access to your personal meeting ID from accessing your meetings whenever they want to. And you see also that password is selected and it generates a password automatically. So when you are creating these meetings and you are sending out the invite link, you'll also send out the meeting password that it just made up automatically. Then we've also got down underneath advanced options. So you have all the way down at the bottom, you see advanced options. If you were to click on advanced options, you would see this. Here's where you can say enable waiting room. I sometimes select mute participants on entry. That's not really a security thing. That's more just keeping things less chaotic. Yeah, so in terms of security, that enable waiting room is the main one that you want to have selected. And you don't want to have selected enable join before host. Again, that's one of those things. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'll probably have a circumstance where I think, oh gosh, I could really use this enable join before host thing. But that just means you're letting people into the meeting before you as the host are there. So obviously that obviates the security measures you would want to take to keep out folks that you don't want in the meeting. So if the goal is security, you don't want to select that one. I see I have a chat coming in. Oh, Sherry says that she can't hear me. So Sherry, on my end, she can't hear me. So what am I saying? Hang on a second, everybody. I'm just gonna let her know that all looks good on my end. Check your audio/volume settings. See if that works. Hopefully she will be able to. Looks like she might have left the meeting. That's unfortunate. Hard to keep track of everything going on when you're running the meeting and people are not hearing potentially. Hopefully everybody else can still hear me. Okay, so those are our Zoom bombing tips and where to find those options when you're setting up a meeting. And also, okay, so here's those share screen options. So when you're the host and you have the ability to share screen, that's what the little share screen icon looks like. And to find that option so that only the host can share, you click on the little arrow next to the share screen button. And as you can see in the second picture, it asks who can share, only host or all participants. You would select only host. All right, so aside from those tips that are specific to preventing unwanted folks from being in your meetings, there are just always good general security tips to follow for keeping any other negative outcomes from occurring. Number one, as always, as in everything, keep Zoom updated. But this is particularly important in this case because Zoom as a company, as an entity, and the people that created it never expected that overnight they would go from being a well-known but generally obscure little meeting platform to something that millions of people all over the world are relying on. So there were some legitimate security concerns when it comes to some shoddy coding and all that kind of stuff. And then there were some things that are perfectly legitimate for them to have had in place that just don't work in the new reality of having so many people using their platform. So both of those things result in security issues for us on the user end of things. And they are working hard to try to fix those issues. So you want to keep Zoom updated regularly because every day they're fixing one of those little problems that people are noticing. Oop, we've got a new person joining us. Hopefully that person will hear us. All right, so you keep Zoom updated. And obviously, keep your own security software updated too. That means your security software, your antivirus software, keep your browser updated, just all those things that you should be doing anyway to keep your computer running in tip-top condition and keeping it resilient against external threats will help in these instances. Limit your interaction with unknown users. So say you are in a meeting and, so it's a library meeting and I've admitted a bunch of people and maybe I've tried to do my best to admit only people who seem legitimate. But for whatever reason, maybe somebody has slipped by my own security. And so there are people in there mixing and mingling who you don't know. You're going to see, if you're in the chat window, people can send chats like Sherry was doing before she had to go. They might share links. Just like same rules where if you get an email from someone you don't know, don't trust the link. Don't click on anything. Verify. If you think something you need to click on has come up, verify if you can. But generally speaking, if you don't know who somebody is in a Zoom meeting, in a Zoom chat, just assume that you don't need whatever link they are sending you. Let's see here. And be aware of your surroundings and your shares. Be aware of what's on view and visible to others. That can include your physical surroundings if you're appearing on your webcam. So take care that there's no sensitive or personally revealing information in the background. And I have a fun way of making sure that's the case later on in this presentation. It can also include digital items like files or documents on your computer if you're the one sharing your screen. It's wise probably not to share your desktop at all because a lot of us keep either important documents or somehow revealing information there right on our desktop. So better to have, if you're sharing a PowerPoint presentation, if you're sharing an Excel spreadsheet, have that stuff ready to go so that you're not ending up sharing your desktop as you fumble around to get the program that you're trying to share open. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So just be aware of what other people can see. All right. I am going to pause there for a second and just see if people have any questions. I'm going to unmute you one by one, starting with Barb, and I'm going to make sure you're still hearing me, and I'm going to see if you have any questions. So Barb, you are unmuted. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, wonderful. And do you have any questions so far about any of this?
Not so far.
All right, wonderful. If you do, feel free to send a chat message. Have you seen where the chat feature is?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, I'm going to mute you again and move on to the next person down the list. Thank you. And the next person is Margie White. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you, Alex, for doing this.
Thank you
really
for being
appreciate
here.
It.
Anytime. Do you have any questions so far?
I do. You were referencing the computer laptop usage and the security along with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm participating using my laptop computer.
Mm-hmm.
So can you refresh what you said again about people could have access to what's on the laptop?
So yeah, the good news is they don't have access, like they can't take over your computer and click on anything and open stuff up that kind of way. There are programs that like heavy duty computer experts can use, like if they're your Dell's remote support people, they could take over your computer and actually do things on your computer remote. Okay. Zoom doesn't allow that, so that's never going to be an issue. What Zoom is potentially sensitive to is if you share your screen and there's something revealing on your screen. So on your desktop, like if you have, your latest, it's limited what kind of things could happen, but like say you had a bank statement saved to your desktop and then suddenly everybody knows what bank you use, and that, that could be a little bit iffy. So stuff like that, you want to just watch out for. Is that the kind of thing you were thinking about?
Yes, I just wanted clarification and you gave it, so thank
Okay.
you.
Wonderful.
Appreciate
All right.
it.
You're very welcome. All right, I'm going to mute you back up and go on down to Rich. Rich, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
All right, wonderful. And do you have any questions so far?
Not yet.
All right, great. And I do see that John is with us. I don't have the ability to mute John right now. I hope you can hear us, John. If you need to send me a message via the chat, you can do that. But as of now, I will assume that you can hear us. I'll check the chat and make sure. I don't see any chat so far. So hopefully all is good. But okay, so we are going to move on from the security tips to more like Zoom usage tips. Oop, I have a new person joining us. Let me admit that person. And that person left immediately. Okay, these things happen. Anyway, all right, so moving into, oh no, there she is. Okay, good, we do have a new person with us. Hopefully she can hear us. Sue, if you can hear me, send me a message in the chat to let me know. I have everybody's video off and sound off, just to keep things easier on my end. Oop, and I see now John does have the microphone. It takes a while, I've noticed. Sometimes people's audio doesn't hook up immediately. So I'm gonna unmute John. And John, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can, good. Do you have any questions so far?
Well, I just went through 15 minutes of trying to make it work. So I
Oh,
guess
darn.
I'm a newbie, so.
That's okay. I mentioned at the beginning that the sort of level for this session is if you're on, you've got you're at the level that the minimum level needed. I am recording this, so if you need to go back and watch the beginning later on, that'll be available for folks who are joining us late. So if you don't have a specific question, I'll mute you back up and check on Sue, okay?
Well, hold on
Okay,
just a
sure.
sec. What screen should I be at?
Do you see general security tips?
Okay.
It should be the only thing showing on Zoom.
Right now, it's blank.
Okay,
let's see.
Well,
And then if I go to my next page, I have the people who have joined. And then the next one is other people who have joined. If I go back, that one is blank.
Well, let me stop sharing and then I'll start sharing again. Maybe since you joined late, your computer didn't grab onto my share. So let me stop sharing if it'll let me. Let's see, I'll share the whiteboard for a second. Then I'll close the whiteboard. And I will go back to sharing my presentation. Any changes?
I see the general security tips 1 through 4.
Perfect. That is where we are.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for letting me know about that. I'm going to mute you and check in with Sue real quick.
Sure.
And Sue, oh, so I can't unmute Sue, which means that Sue might have herself muted on her end. Hopefully she's hearing us. I see a chat coming in. It is Sue. Okay, Sue is fine. Good. Excellent. All right. So we're going to move on from safety and security to general usage tips. All right. And speaking of mute, a good user tip is to mute yourself. It's just common courtesy to start with. Imagine, in the real world, we walk into a room and everybody's kind of buzzing, and that's okay, and we can kind of filter that out until things, get going. I have found for myself in the digital meeting realm, when I enter a session that's about to start, and there's a lot of crosstalk and stuff, it's really chaotic and difficult for me personally to kind of gather my thoughts. So if you mute yourself, then only the presenter is there able to unmute people or have the floor for the moment. And there's a fun and easy trick. If you have yourself muted already, you can use the space bar to temporarily unmute yourself. So if you're in a meeting, it's a committee meeting where people are expected to be participating, but you want the chairperson is doing most of the talking. So you don't want the background noise to be messing with the chairperson's ability to communicate. But now suddenly it's your turn to make a report. Press and hold the space bar and you will become unmuted for the length that you press the space bar, and then you can let go and you are muted again. So it's sort of a nice and easy way to avoid fumbling with your mouse and finding the mute button. I think that's pretty neat. So you can also change your background, and this gets back to what I was saying earlier, how if you're using your video camera, you're showing yourself and your surroundings. It can be a security issue. It can be a safety issue if you don't want to reveal your location too much. It can also be just maybe your place is a little bit untidy. Maybe it's boring. Maybe you prefer to protect your privacy. So you can change your background to something perhaps more interesting. You can use virtual backgrounds, even your own uploaded images. So here's an example. So when you're on the landing page of, you've logged into Zoom and you've got the whole, starting the Zoom situation. Always in most programs, if you're looking for a setting, look for that cog. That's probably, as I start to sit down and thinking about it, I'll probably think of a million examples where their settings are not under a cog-shaped menu, but in this case, Zoom uses the cog for the international symbol of, hey, there's more stuff here for you to mess around with. So if you click on that cog, you get into the settings page, and along the left side of the settings page, you have all the options that you can mess around with, including virtual background, which I have pointed out there. And within the virtual background, you can do stuff like that. You can put yourself in San Francisco. You can put yourself in a grassland or in outer space. So in that picture, you can't tell that I'm in front of my beautiful bookshelf full of Marvel Comics graphic novels, which I do usually prefer to show off if I can. But just for the sake of this, I am not. And you can also upload your own photos. So there's Batman swinging around in the background. So you can create some whimsy or just distraction from whatever you usually have in your background using virtual backgrounds. So again, use that gear menu to access your settings, select virtual background, and you see the ability to choose your virtual backgrounds. The first time you do it, it'll ask you to download them. The images don't live on your computer until you select one for the first time, and it downloads a little package of images to your computer, and then they'll be ready to go for the next time you want to have a background. And that little plus sign is where you would go to upload your own image. That's where I got my Batman edition from. All right. We've already kind of talked about this, but the sharing screen option is a really wonderful feature of Zoom. And as the Zoom meeting host, you can select the share screen button from that host menu along the bottom of the screen at any time. And you can also use the keyboard shortcut Alt-S to avoid fumbling with your mouse during a presentation. I haven't quite gotten used to that yet. I still fumble with my mouse. But if you press Alt-S, at least on a Windows computer, it'll bring up the dialog for selecting which screen you want to share. And I do mention that this is my preferred mode in general if I'm giving a presentation like this, rather than distract everyone with my beautiful visage. I just focus on the content itself if I can. But that might not work for your style or the content of your session, so your mileage may vary. But definitely have any files or programs that you plan to share open and ready to go. Again, minimize fumbling whenever possible. So if you have an Excel spreadsheet you're sharing, have that Excel spreadsheet open and ready. If there's a tab of a browser you want to share, rather than have all the tabs together at the top of your browser window like we usually have, I pull that tab out and have it sitting independently so that it's easier to grab onto when you are sharing. When you're sharing your screen. You do want to have a few settings in place when you're messing with the share screen feature. So you want to enter full screen when a participant shares a screen. That just to make sure that all of your computer real estate on the user and the viewer end is being taken up. So there's no dead space around what you're sharing. And silent system notifications when sharing desktop. Nothing worse than being in the middle of making a point and your computer dings to tell you that you've got new mail or something. So these are both options back underneath that gear settings menu. See, there's the share screen button. I think this is a picture of a slightly older version of Zoom, so it looks a little bit not exactly how it looks on my screen, but it's the same basic idea. You click on share screen. This is what you see when you click on share screen. It shows basically anything you have open currently. So this person doesn't have very much open, not much to choose from. If you were on my computer, you'd have a lot to choose from because I always have tons of stuff open. And the options, the settings that I mentioned that you want to have in place are back under that gear, under the share screen options. So if I go back to here, you see about the fourth item down under settings is share screen. So that is where you get the two settings under number 4 here. And it can be good to record your session for a lot of reasons. Maybe you're required to record certain meetings by statute. If you're undertaking some kind of official business, maybe you're participating in a brainstorming session and you don't want to miss a single idea, or maybe you're Zooming with loved ones and you want to treat the experience like a family video. So for any of those reasons, you might want to choose to record your Zoom setting, your Zoom session. And you can set it to record automatically during meeting setup, or you can choose to record during the meeting and you can pause and stop the recording too. And when the meeting ends, you'll be prompted to save the recording. It'll ask you, where do you want to save it? You can select a folder or your desktop. It gives you the option to name it, and then it undergoes a conversion process that takes a few minutes depending on how long your meeting was. So when you are setting up your meeting, this is where you would do that. Under those advanced options at the bottom of the setup page, you would select automatically record meeting on the local computer. And then when you're in a meeting, there's that record button down at the bottom of the screen. So again, this is, I actually have not yet participated in a Zoom meeting as a guest. I've only been a host. So I assume it looks different on the guest end, but on the host end, the host has the ability to record, pause, stop the recording. And that is one of the spots where the host can do that. And then here too, also, when you're in a meeting, there's the options down at the bottom of the screen, but then when you're in particularly a shared screen setting like I am, there's a little ... more menu option at the top of the screen. And that's where if you haven't started recording yet, you can hit record or pause or stop. And I've always just messed around with recording on the local computer, but if space is an issue or anything like that, you can record to the cloud. I haven't played around with that. You probably need to be logged into the cloud service of your choice, or maybe there's a Zoom cloud service that I'm not sure about yet. But it is an option that we could explore at some point if that's something you need to play with. Okay, so before we ask that question, I'm going to go back to my participants, and I'm going to see if we have any questions again. So Barb, any questions about any of that stuff?
No, you did a great job.
Oh, thank you, Barb. All right, I'll mute you again. And now we've got John is in second place now. So any questions about any of that, John?
Well, I guess maybe I need to play with this a little more. I'm looking at it on my Android cell phone, and I don't have any of those menu choices.
Yeah,
And I'm hesitant to go looking for them for fear I'll lose you. So
absolutely.
I guess I will, you could go on to the next person.
Sure. And I will say that it's great that we can do this, we can access Zoom meetings from any of these devices. So it's awesome that you were able to do it on your phone. And I know other people are on their iPads, and people are using all kinds of devices. I should have mentioned from the outset that if you're going to host a meeting, it's probably best to do it from a computer rather than a tablet or a phone or anything. So accessing it perfect from your phone. Glad you were able to do that with us.
Great.
All right, muting you. And back to Margie White. Hello again.
Hello.
Any questions about that stuff?
Well, I lost the screen. It took me a while to recapture that, but I always had the audio, which was wonderful. So
Okay, good.
it's a user malfunction, not a program malfunction.
Gotcha. Well, it's very easy to have that happen. Happens to all of us. And just like for the folks who joined us late, if you wanted to go back and watch this again, I'll be posting it. And I should mention, I'll post it on our library YouTube page. So, and then maybe I'll share the link on Facebook and stuff. So people will have multiple options to go back and watch this again if there was parts that they missed. But thank you. I will mute you again if there's no other questions from you.
No, I'm fine.
All right, thank you. How's about Rich? Any questions?
I had a question about recording, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, that's okay.
So,
To you, you know how to get a hold of me, right?
yes.
All right, good. All right, and I see a chat's coming in from Sue. No questions from Sue. Okay, thank you for letting me know, Sue. So with that, my general ending question for these sessions is, what topics would you like covered next? And I won't put you on the spot now, but if you think of something, whether it's Rich's recording question or some other topic unrelated to Zoom, just something you're interested in knowing about relating to technological resources that we are all relying so much more on now, get a hold of me. You can use that info@pypl.org address. If you have some other way of getting a hold of me, as some of you do, you can certainly use any of those methods as well. And with that, I'm going to do something crazy, and I'm going to unmute all just to see any last minute anything. Shout them out, and if not, we'll end the meeting in a second here.
I have a question.
Yes.
The only thing other than your screen on my screen is a button and it's red and it says recording.
Mm-hmm.
Is that yours that's recording, or is that mine that's recording?
That should be just an indication on your end that the session's being recorded. So it's I'm choosing to record it. I guess that's how they let everybody know, be on your best behavior, you're being recorded.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you for asking. Anybody else before we close up?
I just would like to say once again, Alex, I think that the Penn Yan community is fortunate to have you. I really
Yay.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you all for indulging in us as we have attempted to keep on top of all these many changing situations.
thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
I'll
Thank
end the
you.
session, but have a good day, everybody. Hopefully I'll hear from you all again sometime, okay?
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.